Well, good Saturday morning to you all. Welcome in as you come in. This is Sandra James with Living It with Sandra James. And this morning, I just want to have a conversation about something that I believe everyone has experienced at some point in their life. And so I want to talk about it today. And as you already know, we're talking about getting real. Let's get real. And we're getting real about what we have a tendency to avoid or what we're avoiding right now or what we have avoided in the past and why we avoid it. Excuse me, or why we may even continue to avoid. And I also want to see if we can make a distinction between avoiding and procrastination. So we will definitely see how it goes. And it's just a Saturday morning, some good conversation before we get into the day. Welcome in if you're in the bushes. Welcome in if you're on the replay. I just want to thank you for coming at all. I appreciate your presence and let's get with it. So I put in the chat a question. So I really would appreciate it if you would participate with that question. And the question is, what is the number one reason a person says for why they didn't tell someone something? And I'm also going to share some of the things that I have avoided. Hi, Tamara. Welcome in. Good to see you. Happy Saturday to you. So, well, we just got started. And so I was asking, what do you think the number one reason is that a person says for why they didn't tell someone something that was important? What is your response to that? What do you think a person would say for not telling something? So I have hi, Madeline. Welcome in. This is Sandra James here, colorectal cancer survivor, living with a permanent colostomy bag. Welcome in. And it would be greatly appreciated if you are here or you're in the bushes, if you would hit the like button for me. I would appreciate that. So my question is, what is the number one reason a person says for why they didn't tell someone something? And what you believe the number one reason is. There is no right or wrong answer to that, but I think I know why or what that number one reason is, mainly to protect their feelings, Tamara says. Yeah, some people don't tell a person something because they want to protect that person's feelings or even protect their own feelings. So over the course of my 64 years, I have heard over and over again that I didn't want to worry that person, or I didn't want to hurt them, or I didn't want to make them mad, or I didn't want to be a burden with whatever it is that I'm sharing. Those are some of the number one reasons that that I see that for why a person would not tell someone something important. I just didn't want to, make them worry, and that's what we do. But sometimes you could be hurting them more by not telling them, than protecting them from worry or getting them upset. Sometimes we can hurt them more. And there has been times when someone told me, well, I didn't tell you because I didn't want to be a burden to you, or I didn't want, you to worry. But I'm worrying more, or I'm upset more because I didn't know. Maybe I could have done something in that, whatever that situation is. But also, I do want to bring to mind that in some cases, there could be uh, timing, the time that you tell a person. Some people be like, I was just waiting for the right time, but the right time never came. But in some cases, if a person is perhaps in the hospital and, they just had a heart attack, or they just had a major surgery or something like that, and you need to tell them something, but you don't want to tell them right in that moment. But I think that it's helpful, and these are all my opinions. I am not a professional in especially a medical professional, but I'm not a professional in some other aspects of life either. But, maybe that timing could be, when they are like moving into recovery, and then you can let them know about something that's important, but it's a lot of times you can really make a person mad just by not telling them, and so I don't want to, if I believe it's important, I'm going to use discretion and grace in how I share important information to them. But welcome in, MD Yazariah. I know I'm not saying your name right, and I apologize for that. But welcome in, and happy Saturday to you. Um, so, I just really want to talk about why do we personally avoid things, and what are we avoiding right now? I'm just typing something here in the chat. So, does anybody have something that they're avoiding right now? I have a million things that I have avoided and why I avoided it, and something that I'm avoiding right now, even though I keep saying I'm going to do it, and I still haven't done it. So I am going to share some of those things as well. But I really would like to hear, and especially to know that I am not the only one that have experienced avoidance, and maybe even experiencing avoidance right now in this moment. So if you would like to share, it would be greatly appreciated. And it would also help us to, talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's get real about it. I avoided, when I first got diagnosed. Well, actually, I hadn't technically been diagnosed yet, but I knew that the diagnosis was coming. And it was right after I had the colonoscopy. And the doctor that did the colonoscopy told me that he suspected cancer. And he said that he suspected that, there was this tumor. And so when the results after the colonoscopy and the CT scan that I had came into the mobile app for my medical provider, I avoided opening it up because I already knew what it was going to say, and I just did not want to see it. So I procrastinated, and I avoided opening up that test result because I didn't want to see it, even though when he said he suspected, I already knew that his suspicion was already correct. So I didn't want to open it. I didn't want to look at it. I didn't want to see it. And so, hi, Jackie, welcome in. Happy Saturday to you. Good word this morning. As always, I appreciate that you always have a word for me and for us every day, and sometimes more than once in a day. So I really appreciate you for that. So at the top of the chat, I have a couple questions. So I'm going to ask you since you just came in. So we're talking about avoidance and what we are avoiding in this moment or right now. So, but my question was, what is the number one reason a person says for why they didn't tell someone something? What do you say that is, Jackie? What is the number one reason? To you the number one reason. And in the meantime, Tamara is saying, I am still trying to find my job. I have tried a couple times, but not full force like I should. But I have also enjoyed just living a little first and allow my body to heal also. And Tamara, I'm not a professional, but I'm going to speak to that because there is a balance to life. And when we're in the process of healing after a serious chronic illness or a major surgery, and especially for the type of surgery that we had, and just learning to live with an ostomy can be challenging. And there is a healing process that comes along with that. And it makes it difficult for you to have 100% focus on something else that's important in your life as well. So I commend you for being able to verbalize that. You're saying I need this, but also I need to be in this space to deal with and go through my healing. So that's a good thing, and it's a good acknowledgement of what your life is entailing right now. So though you need that job and you're going to get that job, you also need to focus on your healing and stay in balance with it. And Jackie said, I don't tell people stuff out of being scared of rejection. The answers change or feeling unworthy. This is just my truth. And I'm going to read that again because I stumbled over it. I don't tell people stuff out of being scared. Okay. Scared of rejection. The answers. So you mean their answers change or feeling unworthy. This is just my truth. And it all depends, I believe, Jackie, on what it is that you're telling them. Because as we established some weeks ago, some disclosures are just not to be shared, right? So if it's something about yourself that you feel like you don't want to share this with them because of fear of being rejected, then that's something to think about, because we know that when we are accepting ourselves, it's a little easier to accept being rejected by someone, or accept that they may not be accepting of whatever it is we're sharing. So it depends on what it is and what the reason is for you sharing that, and if is it going to benefit them to even know whatever that is. It may not even be beneficial to them to know that, you know, and if it's not going to enhance your life and enhance their life in some way, then maybe, some things are just not to be disclosed. But I was thinking when I was asking the question, when I put that question there, the number one thing that I've heard over the span of my life is, well, I didn't tell them because I didn't want to worry them. And I didn't tell them because I didn't want to hurt them, or I didn't want them to uh, be mad at me for telling them that. But at the same time, why am I telling somebody something, and what is the thing that I'm telling them, and how significant and how important it is for them, you know, and what is my motive for telling them, So these are all things that we think about, or should be thinking about, when we're really avoiding something for maybe a good reason. For example, if I want help, it is still challenging for me to ask for help because of not having it. But a closed mouth don't get fed. But sometimes something is needed, but not how to say it. Yes, a lot of times we don't ask for help because we're thinking that we're almost certain that we're not going to get it, and that feeling that comes with that no, or even sometimes people will act like you never asked the question or asked for whatever it was you needed. So that's not a good feeling to have, and you're already in the feeling of need, which is enough right there. So to ask someone for something that you need and not get it, or be rejected because of it, is probably a reason why we avoid it. And I'm not going to say that it's a good reason to avoid, because I don't want to promote that either. But it is totally relatable as to why we don't always ask for help, you know. And right now, in this very day, I was telling my husband to talk to his sister about something, and he didn't want to do it because he felt like he already knew what she was going to say. Do do I, the person that I am trying to get a job with, about my ostomy? Okay, I didn't understand your question, Tamara. Do I, the person that I am trying to get a job with, about my ostomy? I don't understand your question, but um I'm going to think, unless you want to retype your question so I could greater understand it. Um Getting a job with an ostomy, I could say this: in the times we're in now, it is much greater and different from the times we were living in before, where having a, what people call a disability or inability, uh, was a stressful situation, because of that, you know, disability. People don't want to hire you, and stuff like that. But now it's a little different. A lot of people that have MS and other types of chronic illnesses, and us with the ostomy. Oh, okay. Now I I can get your question. Do I tell the person that I want employment with that I have an ostomy? Well, I can't give advice, but if it were me, I would tell them. I would tell them. Now, would I tell them in the first interview? Maybe not. But once I have become employed with them, I would like to make them aware of that, just in case of emergency, or just in case you need support in some way. Good morning, beautiful. Welcome in. Happy Saturday to you. Thank you again for a beautiful and very open video that you and share that you did this morning. I really appreciate that honesty and that transparency about challenges that we have in our life instead of avoiding sharing, because we're talking about avoidance here today. Instead of avoiding it, we could be real and open about it. But at the same time, it all depends on what it is and what we're talking about when we talk about avoidance, because it is a very vast uh, topic and a very vast situation, So some things are not to be disclosed and some things are to be disclosed. But Tamara, are you uncomfortable about sharing that you having an ostomy, and as it relates to becoming employed, is that something you're avoiding, or is it just something that you're thinking about whether or not you should do or that you should share? Even today, I had to do I was filling out a application for something, or there was some reason just over this past week that I was filling out a form, and oh, it was something related to my job. It like an update in my information, and they asked in the form, have I ever been convicted of a crime? Now, yes, I have. And so that was the last time I was convicted of a crime was in the year of 2001, I think. And I served a lot of time for that crime. And I put on the form, yes. I still put it on there. I didn't want to avoid it because there's no reason to. I have been working with you people for 8 years, and I just wanted to keep that, honest, because sometimes in the work that I do, the Department of Corrections is involved, and they could just double back and look anyway. But even if they couldn't, or even if they didn't care, that's just something I don't ever want to avoid again, not being able to say that I was a convicted felon. I was a convicted felon 4 different times. And that's my truth. It happened. I served my time, and I'm living in a totally different life now. And I don't want to avoid answering that question. Sometimes people will surprise you when you take a chance and ask anyway. Absolutely. I asked my sister for something and she said no, but someone else heard and went beyond the ask. So opening up is vital. It is in some cases. It very much. And sometimes we need to hear no. And sometimes no is the best answer. We never know until we move in it. But I do want to point out that, and we're grown, and we have the discernment to know when to do something or say something and when not to. But in most cases, we avoid because of fear of something. Beautiful says, my pleasure, Sandra. Yes, we have to discern the when and the how to share, and why we share, and what is the motive for sharing in the first place. Welcome in and good morning, supporters of Trump. Good morning to you too, and happy Saturday to you. But God said help his people, right? Yes, he did. Yes, he did. And he said to love one another as well. So, there are some things that I have avoided in the past because pain was one of them that, I had major avoidance around pain, and a lot of people do. But at the same time, I think that, and I'll share that again, I shared it before, that I didn't want to tell, excuse me, I didn't want to tell my doctor that I was having sciatic pain. And this was the early part of March, well, right before my birthday, because I was afraid that they were going to hospitalize me. So I avoided, but I avoided for a very short period of time, like a day or two. And then I thought about it and I was like, you need to be saying something, because while you're trying to enjoy some birthday time because you haven't in years, you could be risking your life. And so I did tell my doctor, and I was able to get support. But a lot of times we're avoiding because of so many things. And Tamara says, I don't want to add to the reasons not to employ me. So I understand that, but depending on the type of employment that you're trying to have, having an ostomy, as you know, because you're living with it, we are basically at the point in our lives now where we can basically do everything that we were able to do before within reason, aside from lifting heavy things. We have, we go to the bathroom just like everybody else. We just go in a different way. And I don't see a person not wanting to hire you because you have an ostomy, but I could be wrong. But you can, it might hurt you to not try to become employed because of that thought process. It might hinder you from, seeking the right type of employment that fits you. And always remember, the employer, you have something that the employer need, right? That's why people hire people, because they need their services. So remember, you have what they need. So think about that when you're thinking about, getting a job, and whatever the type of job is that you're trying to get, you have what they need. They have what you need, but you have absolutely what they need. I feed the homeless in my city every Friday night, and I don't look for nothing back. That's awesome, because if you're doing something out of your heart, you should not be looking for something in return. You should be doing it for just the reason that you believe you're doing it, and that's to help. So good for you, supporters of Trump. The motive is important. Absolutely. If it is not important to the situation, there is no need to express it. You don't have to read. You do have to read the room for sure. Absolutely. You have to read the room. You have to, what is your motive for doing it, and for sharing it or for telling it, but to absolutely avoid something out of fear can be a little, you're welcome, Tamara. It could be a little stifling, and we can miss out on a lot of things. We can miss out on a lot of life, because of fear. And we don't want fear to be the reason why we don't, share in some ways. But personally, one of the things that I'm avoiding, and this is on a very much lighter note, but it's still important, because and it's also important because I have an ostomy. I keep avoiding cooking. And I avoid cooking because I never liked it. But more importantly, I avoid it because I don't know how to cook. I don't know how to cook. And it's something as simple as, well, if you don't know how to cook, go learn how to cook. But then I turned around. How are you feeling today, Sandra? I am feeling good. I'm feeling great. And I just really wanted to talk about how we avoid things. And sometimes we do it without even our acknowledgement. But for me, I avoid cooking. And I use these excuses about, well, I have two jobs and I have the YouTube channel and I have to be doing this and I have to be doing that. Everybody, is so many people in the world that have children, that have jobs, and have things that they do for recreation and things that they do on the side, maybe even like a YouTube channel, and they still cook. They have husbands and wives and they still cook. So, I had to tell myself, knock it off. If you go in there and cook so you can eat better. I can cook, but don't like to cook most times. But at least you know how, and that's not a reason for you to avoid it. If you don't cook, you just don't cook because you don't feel like it, but you do cook. In my case, I just don't cook. And I spent like 2 years having someone to cook for me and my husband for like 2 years. And not only did they cook for us, they delivered it to us as well. And I just paid a certain amount of money. And I did that for 2 years. And then when I got sick, I didn't need that service anymore because of the treatment and all the stuff that hindered my movements and stuff like that. So, but I need to be cooking. And then yesterday, I won a mini skillet. And I just laughed, when I won it, because at the time that the drawing was happening, and this was at Kendi K's monthly draw for her members, I was thinking that would really be cool if I could win something like that. But why did I even want to win it if, I don't cook? But now that I have, I'm going to go ahead and use it. And I don't want to live in that avoidance, and I don't want to stay in that avoidance, because cooking at this point in my life is going to enhance my wellness as I live today, day to day, with my ostomy. It's going to be better for me. And so I just need to get with the program. But I have to be honest about it. It's a real avoidance, for me. And so people, I remember growing up, when I was growing up, and my mom, she used to watch soap operas all the time. And sometimes, during the summer, after school, the soap operas would be, after summer school, the soap operas would still be on. And I would be listening sometime and hearing how people didn't share that they had some kind of medical condition because they didn't want to worry somebody. But when that person did find out that that person had the medical condition, that situation was worse because they didn't share it. And it breaks up relationships and puts strain on relationships as well. What recipe do you think you'll try first? Well, and do understand, you guys, that I have cooked, when it was absolutely necessary, when I ended up with someone's kids on two separate occasions. I had two girls at one time in my life, and so I had to cook for them. But I really want to make some turkey meatballs. That's what I want to make. And I want to have it with some cauliflower and a salad. That's it, But I really would like a good recipe for turkey meatballs. And I do eat, when I do eat for taste. So it would have to absolutely taste good. And I want to make something that tastes good. And I've cooked for my husband before, when he wanted salmon and stuff like that. But I just never been a good cook. I was busy when cooking was being learned in my life. I was running the streets and being a nuisance, not only to society, but, to the household as well. I have been watching Young and the Restless clips on YouTube. It showed Vivica Fox in it. Really? forgot she used to be on there. It was old clips from the 80s and 90s and the early 2000s. Okay, so because I was seeing it in maybe, yeah, it might have been in the 80s, because whenever it was, my mom was watching. But that was the show that I was thinking of, because they always do that in the soap operas, and they hold these important things from people. And I always often wondered, now that I'm grown, that is that the real reason why you didn't share or didn't tell somebody that you had another life, or that you had a chronic illness, or that whatever the thing was that you didn't tell that was really important and people needed to know? Was that it, or was it because you were trying to protect yourself and keep people from being in a different way about you? Hey, triple three, good morning, welcome in. How are you? Happy Saturdays. Good to see you here. We're talking about avoidance and getting real about it, being real about it. And so my question is, what is the number one reason you think that a person always says when they didn't tell someone something? What's that number one reason? My number one reason, what I was saying is because they always say, I didn't want to worry them, or I didn't want to burden them. And so I'm wondering if that's really the true motivation for not saying something. So Vivica Fox played Dr. Stephanie Simmons on The Young and the Restless 1994 to 95 and returned to the role in 2026. Yeah, I haven't seen that show in many, many, many years, but I do remember that that was one of the number one shows where avoidance was a really big thing. And people found out later that they were brother and sister, or people found out that, whatever, something that they just really needed to know. And yeah, Jackie says she hungry since I'm mentioning food. But yeah, a lot of things, and if someone could share with me if there's really a difference between avoiding and procrastinating. Is there really a difference, or are they one and the same? I think that there's a little difference between them, but it's just an opinion. I can't say for certain, but I just know, or I believe, I should say, I just believe that we hurt ourselves and we hurt others more when we're avoiding important things. And even though we may think that by avoiding it, that we're helping and we're not hurting, when we don't, and again, of course, it matters, what the thing is. It just can't be about everything, but significantly, if I know that I'm your sibling and you don't know it, and I discover it, I'm not going to avoid telling you because of what you might think, or because of what I think you're going to respond, because I could be wrong, for one thing, and that's something that you need to know. So if I find out that you're my sibling, I'm going to tell you. I'm not going to avoid telling you. If I know that this kid is not your kid, and I'm having this baby, and I know that I cheated or whatever, and I'm having the baby, I'm not going to avoid telling the truth about you not being the father. I'm just not going to do it, because it's going to hurt more when the kid is 15 and something needs to be done that reveal is going to help in that kid's life, so things like that is really what I'm getting at. Sharing important information. What if your doctor, and this absolutely does probably happen in the lives of some, what if your doctor didn't tell you uh, some important information about your diagnosis, and it hurts you in some way? The first thing we're going to want to do is sue them for not disclosing the information. Maybe that doctor was acting in an unethical way, and even sometimes acting more in their feelings for their relationship with you as a patient, and just didn't want to tell you, that you whatever, and they don't tell you, and then you find out and it's too late, or you find out and it has done you more harm than it has done you any good for them not telling you. You wouldn't want that. These are some of the things that I think about when avoidance try to creep up in my life. I think the difference may be the emotion behind it. Yes. Yeah, because it's a lot. It's a lot to think about, you know, and people just sometimes I don't want to say that a person is saying or doing something for the wrong reason, because I can't speak to that, but I can speak to, from my own personal experience, that um I don't want to avoid something out of fear. I don't want to avoid telling someone something that's very important for fear of their response, or for fear of it's going to worry them. And I also like to think that the wound of a friend, sometimes things that you're going to share or tell someone that's very important and that they really need to know, it may hurt them. But I believe that the wound of a friend is better than the kisses of the enemy. And what I mean by that is, if I don't share, if I share something that's going to hurt somebody, I can also be there to help them through that painful situation. But if I just be like, oh, everything is good, that's the kiss of an enemy. And that's not being honest, and that's not being helpful to that person. I call it the kiss of the enemy, when you smile and you say, oh, everything is okay. They don't need to know that, that's just for me. Mm-mm. I'd rather be your friend and tell you the truth and help you through it, than to not tell you and watch you hurt. Because at the end of the day, you're going to hurt when you find out anyway. So that's just my take on it. Excuse me. I have a cold, you guys. I'm really sorry. I'm still trying to function even with the cold. So, but yes, it's a lot to think about. And I'm just going to, I always want to put my best foot forward, and I want to be truthful without, taking it to the extreme. But yeah, and a lot of times when we avoid, we're hurting ourselves, and we're hindering our lives, and we're not being honest with ourselves when we avoid, and where we're hiding. And I was afraid and fearful about going live long before YouTube even came into my life. It was during the time when I was vending and doing markets and stuff. And I had a missing space down here at the bottom. And I had my partials. I wear them now. I absolutely hate them. But I didn't want to go live because that space was missing and I didn't want to be wearing the bottom partial. So I just avoided going live and sharing information about my products and, doing these videos because of that. But when YouTube came along, I was like, okay, this is what I'm doing on YouTube is not just for sharing my journey, but it's for the lives of other people. So put that thing in your mouth and let's get busy because you're here to help someone in whatever way you can. And you can't be procrastinating about not coming on live and not doing a video because you have missing teeth on the bottom. Put the thing in your mouth since you have it and go and share that information and potentially help someone else that needs to hear from you. Good morning, Mary's Life Journey. Welcome in. Happy Saturday to you. I am doing well. How are you? It's good to see you. Very, very good to see you. Yeah, so Mary, we're talking about avoidance and how it can hinder a life or your life or the life of someone else, or just being in avoidance because of fear. And are we experiencing that right now? Are we avoiding things right now because of fear or because of what people may think or how it's going to impact someone else? Or are we not living in avoidance at all? I believe that we all have some aspects of avoidance in some area. And again, avoidance is very big, it's very wide, it's broad. So we have to narrow that down and look at our motivations for avoiding or our motivations for not avoiding and measure it from there. But I think that is very important to not be so deep in avoidance that we hurt ourselves and that we hurt other people. I had some things down here that I had written down, but I think I basically covered them all. But I think that's the number one thing that people say. Oh, I just didn't want to hurt them. I just didn't want to worry them. And a lot of times people already know and they are counting on you to come forward, you know. And don't let the challenges in life cause you to avoid in a way that can stifle your life, stifle your growth, stifle change, and you stay in the same place that you want to move away from and that you want to grow from and into, but that avoidance is in the way. So, of course, we're going to use our discernment in how we move in that. But I think that is very important for us to, be real. Let's get real about how avoidance is and what it is in our lives. And if it is in a negative way or in a way that's hurting us and other people, then we need to address it and confront it and get out of it. You know, we never know who's waiting for us to move in a way that's going to help them and move in a way that's going to help ourselves. So when I get the skillet, even before I get the skillet, and I keep saying I'm going to do it, but I am going to do it because it's going to benefit my life. It's going to benefit me to cook. And I'm going to stop avoiding it. And I said it in front of God and everybody, and I'm not ashamed of it. I cannot cook. I could do a little something, but I cannot cook. But I need to cook what I can and learn as I grow, because that's another thing. YouTube, anybody on YouTube can show you how to cook anything, and there's a lot of ways to get recipes, and if you can read, you can follow instructions. So my thing was total avoidance, and now that I really have uh, been honest about it, I think that honesty is going to help me, and it might help my husband too. Yes, this is a great topic. Yes, I have avoided situations and things just not to deal with things. Yeah, just don't want to deal with it. You know, just don't want to hear it. You know, just don't want to talk about it because of the things that's going to come with that. And sometimes it doesn't feel good and it could be stressful. But also, do we actually think about the other side of it? Well, what's going to happen if I just stay in avoidance with it? Is it going to be worse? Probably so. And again, it all depends on what it is and what we're talking about and what the motive is, for that specific thing. We have to get really specific about what we're talking about or what we're thinking about, even when we're by ourselves and we know that we have things going on that need to be addressed. So it's a really big thing. Tamara said, I thought about suing my doctors because I suffered for years. My doctor didn't go over my tests with me. I had a colostomy and he said there was narrowing and it didn't do anything. Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's also our responsibility, to look deeper into our lives and into our situations. And a lot of things like this has happened in the lives of other people, Tamara. And I'm really sorry that happened with you, because there's a possibility that maybe you wouldn't have had to have the colostomy had the real issue been addressed early. And that's one of the reasons why I also talk about early detection when it comes to chronic illnesses and diseases and cancers and, these different things that we come about in our life. But when I talk about early detection and paying attention to your body and listening for and looking for, and addressing symptoms, people don't want to hear that stuff. You should see the you should see the views on those type of videos. People don't want to, they avoid it. They avoid it. I'm sorry that happened to you as well. Mary's life journey is sharing to Tamara. I am really sorry about that, Tamara, and I would look further into it if it's important to you. That's a decision that you have to make if that's important to you. And as we are colostomates and we communicate all the time, I support you and I got your back for sure. So whatever decision that you make the best decision for you and not the decision that someone is telling you to do. You got to follow your heart on that one. Yeah, prayers. E333. I think some doctors like to make money on testing and don't care about the people. In some cases, we know that about pharmaceuticals. We know that about certain things, but we also have to advocate for ourselves. There are so many young people who are living with colostomy bags and ileostomy appliances because someone told them that it was too early to be tested, or they said, "Oh, these symptoms are," when the symptoms were given, they were saying, "Oh, this is something else." Like they're saying to Tamara, "Oh, this is a narrowing." When you're giving them the information, you're giving them the symptoms. So thank you, beautiful. Got to head out, but I will see you again. Happy Saturday. Happy Saturday to you too. And I can't wait to the competition because you going to kill it. And I'm going to be hollering and screaming when I get the news. Blessings on your life, sis. So yes, we have to do what we have to do. We have to address what we have to address, even when it's not comfortable, even when somebody is going to say no, and even if someone is going to think whatever they think about, whatever it is that's going on in your life, or even if they are going to get mad at you for something that it's important for you to share. My heart want to say do it anyway, but I'm going to just say choose what you believe is best for you. But for me, if it need to be said, I'm going to say it, but I'm going to do it in love and with dignity and worth and respect of person. But I am not going to know something that's important to you and not tell you the truth and not tell you about it because I'm worried about if it's going to hurt you or if you're going to be mad at me or whatever. You're going to really be mad at me if I know something and I don't tell you and you find out that I knew. What is that going to be? Look, are you really my friend? Did you really care about me? Is exactly what you're going to say. So it's also a double-edged sword, you know. So my best thing that I can say for that is, just do what you believe is right because is right, And again, Tamara, I'm glad that my surgeon told me what was going to be the thing in order for me to remove the tumor. Did I want to hear that stuff? No. And when she said, let's talk about, she said, I came in for an appointment. She said, let's talk about the big surgery. And I was like, what big surgery? Well, I don't want to talk about the big surgery. What does that mean? But initially I was saying, let's get this surgery and get this thing out of me. But when they start talking about in order for us to get the tumor out of your body, we need to do these things. I didn't want to hear that. And I didn't want to go through those things, but at least they told me. And because they told me, I had a choice. I was given a choice. And it was my decision to choose to decide on yes on the treatment or no. And so I decided yes. And it wasn't like I woke up and said, yeah, I didn't. I went through a lot of stuff, but I chose what I believe was right for me. And like I said yesterday, I didn't follow the stuff that that guy was telling me to do. I did what I thought was right, and I'm glad I did because I'm living today and I can still speak and I can still move, and he can't because he chose a different route for his cancer. So it's a lot. Avoidance is a really big topic. It's a really big subject, and it can never be covered in one sitting. Yes. And Jackie, yes, it is because you know your body, but sometimes you really don't know because I thought I knew. I thought that I was having bleeding spots of blood because of hemorrhoids, but my body was telling me, girl, you got cancer. But I didn't know that. And that's another reason why we should not avoid talking to our providers. And when they're pushing back and they're saying, oh, well, it's because of this. And, we got to make sure because they're human, we're human. And sometimes we don't get the right answer and we have to push. We have to advocate for ourselves. And we cannot avoid things that can save our lives or to help the lives of others. because of we're afraid of the response or the rejection, or um, I was afraid to. I'm not going to use the term afraid. I was avoiding in the very early stages of my recovery after coming from the hospital. I was avoiding going out, and I was at the stage where I could move around a little bit more and go places, but I was avoiding it because I did not want to have my stoma make noise in public, because, when a woman passes gas in public, it's unladylike to me. But now, that was when you had control over it, Sandra. But now you don't have no control over it. So what are you going to do? Stay in the house? No. So I was avoiding it, but I didn't stay in that avoidance because it was just unhelpful and unfruitful for my life. And I still have to function in life. And working, Tamara, is part of that. And when you find the type of employment that's going to work for you, you're going to see that it's going to be a little easier. And, if you're doing the type of job that calls for that type of information, then you can share it. And if it doesn't, then you don't have to, you know. So it all depends on what that job is, too. And I should have said that earlier if I didn't. But it all depends on what that is. So let's be mindful. Everyone in the chat, let's be mindful of the decisions that we make. And, we're not on this earth alone. There are people around us. There are people in our very direct circle that are depending on us to be honest and true for them, even if they're not for us, because sometimes, especially with family, it could be like that. But, you be in truth, you be in honesty. And if it's something that's not going to enhance the life of that person or help the life of that person, then some things are not needed to be disclosed. But if it is, then it is, and so we're able to make decisions in that area and make the right choices that we need to make in order, to better our lives and to stay growing and to remember and respect the lives of other people. And that's my story, and I'm going to stick to it. And I really appreciate you all spending time with me this morning. It's already afternoon for some of you guys, and I'm going to go ahead and land the plane, as I like to say. And I have some things that I need to do while it's Saturday. And it looks like here in California, they've been talking about rain. About an hour ago, I saw the thick clouds coming in. So, but I do want to get some things done before it does rain. I had tests that was a year and a half old that had the answer, and they were ignored. Yeah. Well, fight your fight. If you feel like you need to fight and you feel like this needs to be confronted, confront it. And because if you don't and you really believe in that, then you're never going to have peace. So make your decisions wisely. And as I said before, and that is true, that I support you and I got you. And I'm here for you. Thank you, Mary. I'm here for you. And you and Tamara, that I am definitely in support of you and all my ostomates, all the people that's in my life, everybody in this chat. I support you. I was just told to take laxatives, and motility drugs that didn't do anything for me. I was taking one half of Miralax a day. Yeah, and I was told not to take that. So see, we gotta research, and we gotta figure out things for ourselves too, because sometimes, it's, I think about the clients in the field that I work in. Sometimes there could be 15, 20 clients to one provider. And that provider could, I'm not saying that this is happening, but I'm saying that things like this do happen, that each and every client is not getting the full service from that provider because there's a vast of clients that need support. And it's like that in the medical field as well. And some providers won't do the extra mile or won't do their 1000% because of overwhelmed and all of the other things. Or it could just be flat out, people just want to make money. It could very well be that. But whatever the case may be, do your due diligence and do what you believe is right and advocate for yourself and to show up for yourself and bring these issues to the table and address them. At some point, people are going to have to respond to that, whether they like it or not. They're going to have to respond to that. And if you believe that you have been wrong medically, advocate for yourself. And if you need physical support, I mean somebody that's right there in your vicinity that can support you and help you, like a lawyer, do that. Do that, because you have to stand up for yourself, So again, I support you in it, and do what you need to do. And I'm right here being whatever I can be for you. I'm right here. You guys, it's been great. I really appreciate that you all participated and spent time and shared with me and allowed me to share with you. I will see you all in the next one. And as I always say, who knows what I'm going to come up with next. But I will see you soon. And thank you again for being here. Those of you on the replay, thank you for spending time with me today. And I will see you in the next one.
Living it stronger every day. Living it, finding my own way. I lost a midlife, I say it plain. Colorectal cancer didn't win the game. Living it, confident and brave. Living it with Sandra Jane.